person at the next flea market booth. For all she knew, Wolf might be an actual wolf. But who cared, as long as her mother was on her way to Greenwich, Connecticut to babysit for the long weekend. But her mother kept talking. "The final judging is on Sunday, and we're packing up the van and heading there now." June's lungs squeezed, and she gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You're headed to Santa Fe." It was a statement, not a question, because if her mother was supposed to pick up the girls in Greenwich in 5 hours, well, of course she was headed to Santa Fe. The only reason why David had agreed to her New Orleans trip was if June arranged for help with the girls. There was no way that was ever going to be David's mother. Clarissa couldn't stand it when children made noise or messes. So, June had called her own mother, who was fine with noise and messes. But unfortunately, she was less fine with details, like showing up. June wouldn't have asked if she'd had any other options. "Juniper, this painting is a big deal for Wolf. An award of this caliber could alter the trajectory of his career. And he can't go without me. I'm his muse, remember? I sent you the photo." June pressed a palm to her forehead as a vein began to pulse there. She vaguely remembered a text from her mother of a painting depicting a naked woman sitting in a lotus position in the desert. The woman was draped in a red cloth that, thankfully, covered the graphic bits, and June hadn't done more than write back a generic, "Amazing," before promptly shutting off her phone and going back to making dinner for the girls. Now that June thought about it, the woman in the painting did have her mother's long blonde hair, but she'd also had glowing blue skin. So how was June to know? This Wolf must be another one of her mother's boyfriends. Esther had probably met him in the art scene in Philadelphia, where she met most of her boyfriends. Or maybe at her weekly drum circle. "Mom, I'm about to get on my flight. You promised you'd be here to get the girls." "Can't David pick them up?" "Maybe he can today," although he'd whine about being too busy to leave work early. "But tomorrow's the first day of summer break, and someone needs to be home with them while David goes to work. The nanny can't start until next week." "I'm sure you'll work something out, honey. I mean, it's not like you're a struggling single mother." Here we go again. June heaved another breath. Damn it, she wished she could remember if it was supposed to be in for 3 counts or 4. Maybe it was in for 3 counts, out for 4? God, she hated yoga. "You're lucky you have a husband to support you. I had to do everything myself. 3 daughters, all on my own." It was the same refrain Esther always came back to when June expressed frustration at her mother's failure to show up for graduations, or weddings, or the girl's birthday. All the sacrifices she'd made. June's jaw clenched, and her stomach began to burn. "You did everything yourself?" she snapped before she could stop herself. "I seem to recall it was me doing everything while you were off with your latest boyfriend. Looks like nothing much has changed." Damn it. How many hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars had she poured into therapy to learn there was no point engaging with the narcissist when they were rewriting history and making it all about them? And yet, here June was, arguing with her mother again. She sucked in another marginally cleansing breath. "Well, aren't you the most ungrateful—" "Mom, I've got to go." There was no point prolonging this conversation. "Well, you could at least wish Wolf good luck before you hang up." Oh, good Lord. June smacked the steering wheel with her palm to shut off the phone. Deep down, she'd known her mother would bail. But she'd wanted this trip so badly, she'd ignored all her instincts. What an absolute waste. What was she going to do now? As the airport terminal came into view, June pulled over onto the side of the road and flipped on her hazard lights. Her flight was in an hour and a half. Maybe she could still work this out. She called David's cell phone, but it went to voicemail. She tried a text. "Call me." She wasn't an all-caps kind of person, so hopefully he'd get the message. Then she tried his office phone, his assistant, and his cell again. Still nothing. June growled in frustration.